It happened on a night when Elvis Presley felt more like a ghost than a legend. The lights were bright, the applause was loud, but something inside him was dimming, something no one around him seemed to notice. Not the band, not the colonel, not the roaring crowd who believed the king could never fall. But backstage, life was unraveling quietly. Painkillers, exhaustion, loneliness, a smile forced on a face that no longer remembered what joy felt like. Yet on this particular night, someone unexpected walked into his world. Not a producer, not a fan club member, just a girl with a letter in her trembling hands. What happened next would shatter Elvis Presley in ways no spotlight ever could. And for the first time in years, the king cried not from pain, but from something far deeper. Las Vegas was loud that night, too loud, the kind of loud that crawled into Elvis's skull and pressed against the back of his eyes until he felt nauseous. He sat alone in his dressing room, elbows resting on his knees, staring at the glittering white suit laid out on a chair across from him. Gold studs, rhinestones, perfection. It felt like armor, but not enough to save him. The colonel had been pacing the hallway for nearly an hour, barking orders, demanding timing updates, threatening to cut anyone who delayed the show. Same routine, same chaos, same superficial world that swallowed Elvis whole every night. Elvis rubbed his eyes. They burned. He hadn't slept properly in days. A soft knock broke the silence. Then a voice, small, unsure. "Mr. Presley, can I come in?" Elvis straightened slightly. Not many people knocked. Most barged in, assuming access to him was a right, not a privilege. "Yeah," he called softly. "Come on." The door opened just enough for a young woman to slip inside. Early 20s, maybe. Tiny, nervous hands clutched something to her chest. Her breathing trembled. She wasn't dressed like the other fans. No glitter, no flashy dress. Just a plain skirt, a faded blouse, and eyes that carried too much sorrow for someone her age. "I'm sorry," she stammered. "They told me I shouldn't bother you, but I had to try." Elvis forced a smile. "It's all right, honey. What's your name?" "Emily," she whispered. Her voice cracked, as if saying her own name hurt. She stepped closer, glancing nervously at the door, afraid someone would drag her out at any moment. Elvis noticed the envelope she held. The paper was crushed, edges wrinkled, like she'd been gripping it for hours. "What V you got there?" Elvis asked gently. Emily took a shaky breath. It's a letter. For you." Elvis hesitated. He received hundreds of letters daily. Fans wrote about everything. Love, pain, adoration, obsession. But something about the way she held it, as if it were a living thing, made him reach out. She handed it to him carefully, almost reverently. His fingers brushed hers. They were ice cold. Elvis opened the envelope slowly. Inside was a handwritten note, the ink smudged from what looked like teardrops. He glanced up at her, then began reading. "My brother loved you. He never missed a single performance. Even when he got sick, he'd sit in his hospital bed and listen to your records on repeat. He said your music made him feel alive, even when he knew he was dying." Elvis's breath caught. Emily's hands tightened at her sides. "He made me promise I'd try to get this letter to you. He didn't make it to your last concert, but he said you saved him." Elvis blinked hard. His chest tightened. "He wanted you to know that you made his last year easier, and that he wasn't afraid at the end, because he believed you'd keep singing for him." Elvis lowered the paper. His throat closed. Emily swallowed. He was only 17. A silence fell over them. No applause. No gold lights. No pressure. Just a girl with a breaking heart. And a legend who didn't know how to hold his own anymore. Elvis cleared his throat, tried to speak around the lump rising inside him. "Emily, I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything," she whispered. "I just wanted to keep my promise." Her voice faltered. He believed in you more than he believed in himself. Elvis felt tears burning behind his eyes, something he hadn't allowed himself to feel in months. Emily stepped back slightly, worried she'd said too much. "I'm sorry if this was wrong. I didn't mean to." "No," Elvis said quickly, standing despite the heaviness in his body. "No, you did right." He looked at the letter again, his hand shaking. It had been so long since someone reached him. Not Elvis Presley, the star, but Elvis, the man. And for the first time in years, he felt something cracking open inside. Not pain, not despair, but humanity. A reminder of the weight of his voice, the weight of the crown he carried, the weight he never asked for, yet bore every day. "Emily," he whispered, eyes glistening, "thank you for bringing this to me." She nodded, wiping her eyes. And as the noise of the crowd roared outside, Elvis Presley felt his heart break. Quietly, painfully, beautifully. Not from weakness, but from love. The noise outside grew louder, waves of applause crashing through the walls of the dressing room, shaking Elvis back into reality he had almost forgotten. Emily stood there, small and fragile, hands clasped tightly in front of her as if she expected someone to drag her out at any second. "Elvis, 5 minutes." A voice shouted from the hallway. He didn't answer. He couldn't. Emily kept her distance, as if afraid she would break him simply by standing too close. Elvis could feel her nervous energy, but beneath that, he sensed something else, something heavy, something she was carrying alone. He folded her letter gently, almost ceremoniously, and placed it against his chest as if it were a fragile relic he couldn't bear to damage. "Emily," he said softly, "how did you even get back here? They don't usually let fans through." She looked down, embarrassed. I know. I wasn't supposed to, but I waited behind the security gates for hours. One of the guards, he heard about my brother. He let me through the side hallway when nobody was watching." Elvis raised his eyebrows. "You took a pretty big risk." She gave a small, defeated shrug. "I didn't have anything else left to risk." That sentence landed deeper than she probably meant it to. He stepped closer, trying to read the expression she kept hiding by lowering her gaze. "Emily, you okay?" She tried to smile but failed. "People think grief is just sadness, but it's not. It's everything. It's guilt, anger, emptiness, and fear that you'll never feel normal again." Elvis felt the sting of recognition. He knew grief. He knew emptiness. He knew fear. Maybe that was why her presence didn't feel like an intrusion, but a mirror. "Your brother," Elvis asked gently. "What was he like?" Emily's eyes softened. "He was the kindest person I ever knew. He had this stupid laugh that filled the whole room. Even when he got sick, he'd make jokes to make me smile." She paused, breath trembling. "He used to say that you were the only person who understood him, that when you sang, he didn't feel sick, he didn't feel scared. He felt alive." Elvis's throat tightened again. How many nights had he sung for crowds who never truly saw him? How many times had he performed while his own heart fell hollow? Yet here was a boy he had never met, someone who felt saved by him. Emily continued, voice cracking. He spent months writing that letter. Half the time, he couldn't even hold the pen. But he kept going, because he needed you to know he didn't die afraid. Elvis swallowed hard. "Emily, I wish I could have met him." "You did," she whispered, in the only way that mattered to him. He felt the weight of that truth settle on his chest, not painfully, but gently, like hands pressing into clay to shape something new. A sudden knock startled them both. "Elvis!" The colonel's voice cut through the door like a blade. "We're late." Emily flinched. Elvis closed his eyes for a moment, collecting himself. He wasn't ready for the stage. Not mentally, not emotionally, not tonight. But he knew he had to go. He looked at Emily. "Come with me." Her eyes widened. What? "No, I can't." "Elvis!" The colonel bellowed again. "Now!" Elvis ignored him. He extended a hand to her. "Emily, walk with me to the side of the stage." She shook her head, stepping back in panic. "They'll throw me out." "No, they won't," Elvis replied gently. "Not while I'm here." She hesitated, torn between fear and disbelief. "Why?" she whispered. Elvis looked at her letter, still clutched in his hand. "Because you reminded me why I sing." Her lips parted, eyes filling again. He motioned toward the hallway. "Come on, just to the side. You don't have to go on stage. Just be there." Emily took a shaky breath and nodded. They walked out together. The hallway was chaos. Band members tuning instruments. Stagehands darting around, lighting texts, shouting cues. No one seemed to notice Emily, except a few confused security guards who looked at Elvis for confirmation. He simply nodded at them, and they stepped aside. As they approached the backstage curtain, the roar of the crowd hit them full force. It was like standing in front of a roaring ocean, each wave a reminder of the pressure waiting for him. Emily clutched her hands together tightly. "You're really going out there feeling like this?" Elvis exhaled slowly. "I've gone out feeling worse." "But why?" He glanced at her, offering the first genuine smile he had worn all week. "Because somewhere out there someone needs it." Emily wiped her cheek, shaken by the sincerity in his voice. The curtain lifted just enough for Elvis to peek at the audience. Thousands of faces, thousands of expectations, a sea of people screaming his name. But for the first time in years, he didn't feel alone, not entirely. He turned back to Emily. "Stay right here. I'll be able to see you from the stage." She nodded, trembling. "Elvis," she whispered. "Yeah, honey?" "Make him proud." Elvis pressed the folded letter to his lips and whispered, "I will." Then the spotlight hit, and Elvis Presley walked onto the stage, carrying a 17-year-old boy's final wish inside his chest. The first step onto the stage was always the hardest. The lights blinded him for a moment, and the sound of the crowd exploded in his ears like endless thunder. Screams, applause, raised hands, signs, flashes. Everything blended together in a whirlwind that, on other nights, drained him. But tonight felt different. Somewhere in that sea of faces wasn't just an audience. It was a memory of a 17-year-old boy who would have given anything to be there. And at the left side of the stage, hidden behind the curtains, was Emily, small, fragile, holding her grief together as if it were the last thing keeping her upright. The band began the first song. Routine. Another show. Elvis lifted the microphone to his lips. The voice came out strong, professional, but inside, something ached. As he sang, his mind wasn't on the chords. It was on the words of the letter. He wasn't afraid at the end, because he believed you'd keep singing for him. The first numbers passed almost automatically. He moved, smiled, struck the iconic poses, exchanged glances with the band, played with the crowd. To the audience, he was a king, the same Elvis, same shine. Inside, he felt like cracked glass holding too much weight. Between songs, he glanced sideways. There she was, Emily, standing in the shadows, hands pressed her chest. He knew instinctively which song had been the boy's favorite. He looked at her again, and her breath caught. "This next song," Elvis said into the microphone, "this one is for someone who couldn't be here tonight." The audience roared, thinking it was a romantic dedication. But Elvis's tone wasn't light. He continued softly. "Sometimes we don't know how much a song means to someone, how far it travels, whose heart it holds together." His eyes drifted toward Emily. "This one is for a young man who held on to my songs when nothing else could hold him." The band exchanged confused looks, but followed his lead as he signaled a song that wasn't on the set list. A ballad, deep, the kind that spoke of loss, longing, and faith. The moment the first notes played, Emily covered her mouth with her hand. It was her brother's favorite. Elvis closed his eyes and began to sing. But tonight, it wasn't performance. It was a conversation. Each verse carried more weight than usual, more truth, more pain. He imagined the boy in a hospital bed, headphones on, eyes closed, trying to forget fear. Imagine weak hands turning up the volume, asking his sister to play it one more time. Imagine a tired smile on a face too young to suffer so much. And for the first time in years, Elvis didn't sing for thousands. He sang for one. Emily cried openly from the side of the stage. Not desperate tears, healing ones. The ballroom fell into a reverent hush. People held hands. Some began to cry without knowing why. They didn't know about the letter. They didn't know about Emily. But they felt something different in his voice. When the song ended, the band held the final chord longer than usual. Elvis kept his eyes closed until the silence settled. Then came the applause. Thunderous. Standing ovation. But he didn't smile. He only looked toward Emily, who whispered a silent, "Thank you." He nodded back, barely visible to anyone else. And in that moment, Elvis realized that what he had done tonight wasn't for fame, nor image, nor obligation. It was for humanity. The last chord thundered across the ballroom, and the audience erupted, cheering, screaming, rising to their feet as if they had witnessed a miracle. Elvis smiled, waved, acknowledged them, but anyone who looked closely would see his eyes were swollen, shining with something raw. He stepped off the stage, and the moment the spotlight left his skin, the strength drained from his body. He staggered slightly, bracing himself on the metal rail. Emily was still there. Her shoulders were small and trembling, her face streaked with tears. The sight of her hit him harder than any applause ever could. "Elvis," she whispered. He moved toward her automatically, drawn by a feeling he didn't understand. "You okay, honey?" She nodded weakly. "You made him proud. You really did." Before Elvis could answer, loud, angry footsteps echoed down the hallway. The Colonel. "Elvis, what the hell was that out there?" Emily flinched at the sound, shrinking back. Elvis stepped in front of her without thinking. An instinctive act of protection. Parker stormed toward them, red-faced, sweating, furious. "You changed the set list, delayed cues, played a song that wasn't approved. You don't get to improvise out there. Do you know how much money?" "Colonel," Elvis said firmly, "not now. Now." Parker barked, "I'm your manager. I decide when we talk." Emily's breath hitched. Elvis's jaw tightened. "She's not some random girl, Colonel." Elvis snapped. "She lost her brother. I sang for him." Parker rolled his eyes. "We're not paid to understand your feelings. We're paid to perform. Stick to the damn show." Elvis stepped closer. A dangerous move. "I'm not your puppet." Parker's expression froze. He wasn't used to being challenged. "You're losing yourself, boy," he spat. "Maybe I'm finally finding myself," Elvis replied. Emily's heart raced. She watched the confrontation unfold, terrified, yet honored to witness Elvis's defiance. "I want her out," Parker hissed, pointing at Emily. "Fans do not belong backstage." Elvis turned to her. She lowered her head, expecting rejection, but Elvis said the words that changed everything. "She stays." Parker blinked. "What?" "She stays until I say she leaves." Silence. Heavy. Unmistakable. The first real rebellion Elvis had allowed himself in years. Parker clenched his teeth, turned, and stormed away. Just before disappearing, he growled, "This isn't over." Elvis sighed, long and broken. Emily stepped closer. "Elvis, thank you." He looked at her, tired but sincere. "Don't thank me. Just stay." The dressing room was silent, sacredly silent, as if the world finally paused to let Elvis breathe. The faint noise of casino outside seemed miles away. For once, no one barged in. No demands. No orders. Just quiet. Emily hovered at the door. "Do you want me to leave?" Elvis shook his head. "No. Stay." He sat before the mirror, staring at a reflection that felt like a stranger, sweat, smudged makeup, trembling eyes. He reached into his jacket and pulled out the letter. The paper felt heavier now, soaked with meaning. He read it again. Halfway through, his voice cracked. 17, Emily, he whispered. He was just a boy. Emily stepped closer, but he wasn't alone at the end. You were there with him. Your voice was. Elvis let out a bitter laugh. "Funny, I can give hope to strangers, but I can't give any to myself." She knelt in front of him gently. "Elvis, look at me." He did. "No one expects you to be perfect," she said softly, "or strong all the time, or happy all the time, or a king all the time." A tear slipped down his face. He didn't wipe it. "I don't know how to be anything else," he admitted. "Then learn," she whispered, "one day at a time." Her words hit something deep inside him, something neglected and starving. Then, without warning, Elvis began to cry. Not silent tears, not a discreet sniffle, a real breakdown. Years of pressure, grief, fear, and loneliness poured out of him in trembling sobs. His body shook. His breath faltered. The letter crumpled against his chest like an anchor. Emily rested a hand on his arm. Not intrusive, not demanding, just present. "Let out," she whispered. And he did. When it finally ended, Elvis wiped his face slowly. "Thank you," he whispered, "for letting me be human." Emily smiled sadly. "You don't need permission to be human." He stared at her, heart aching with truth. "Sometimes I forget that I can be." The silence in the dressing room felt sacred after the breakdown. Elvis breathed slowly, as if each inhale helped piece him back together. Emily stayed by his side, not speaking, not asking, simply offering a presence he had forgotten how much he needed. After a few minutes, Elvis rose to his feet. There was no rush, no performance waiting, no persona to slip into. Just a man trying to rebuild himself one breath at a time. He carefully placed a folded letter back into the inside pocket of his jacket. Emily watched him with a gentleness that made his chest ache. "Emily," he said softly, "you brought me something tonight I didn't even know I'd lost." She blinked. "What's that?" He gave her a small, tired, but sincere smile. "My humanity." Emily looked away, overwhelmed. Elvis gestured for her to come closer. "I want to show you something." She nodded. Elvis walked to a small table at the back of the dressing room. Scattered across it were personal items, old photos, keepsakes, memories he rarely shared with anyone. He picked up a framed picture of his mother and held it gently in his hands before bringing it back to Emily. "My mama, she was my safe place," he said quietly. "When she died, something in me broke. Something I never really fixed." Emily listened, eyes softening. "Elvis," she began, but he shook his head gently. "Ever since then, I've kept everything inside. Fear, pain, guilt, this crown people keep putting on my head." He exhaled, a broken laugh escaping. "It's too heavy for one man." Emily stepped closer. "Then let people help you carry it." He looked at her as if the idea was foreign. "I don't know how." "Start like this," she said softly. "Being honest, like you were with me tonight." Elvis lowered his eyes. "No one sees me," he whispered. "I see you," Emily replied. The truth in her voice hit him harder than any applause ever had. For a brief moment, the world shrank to just the two of them. Then muffled voices echoed from the hallway. Urgent, irritated, loud. Parker, already barking orders, already complaining. Elvis sighed heavily. The world's going to start screaming again. "Then let it scream," Emily said. "But before that, breathe." He sat beside her on the small couch. It was a simple gesture, yet it felt monumental. Elvis Presley choosing to sit beside someone not as an idol, not as a legend, but as a human being. "Emily," he asked softly, why did you risk coming here tonight?" She hesitated, then answered honestly, "Because my brother believed in you. He told me that if I ever saw you face to face, I would see someone human, someone good, someone who still had something to give the world, even when he felt empty." Elvis swallowed hard. "And did you see that?" Emily nodded. "Yes. I saw a man who's tired, hurting, but kind. A man who isn't done yet." Something warm flickered in Elvis's chest. A small flame fighting the darkness. He reached out and took her hand. Gently, gratefully. "Thank you for bringing him here tonight," Elvis said. "Your brother. His courage. His faith. You don't know how much it saved me." Emily blinked fast, holding back emotion. "He loved you. So much." Elvis nodded, overwhelmed. They stood there quietly for a moment. Then Emily's expression shifted. Soft, sad. "Elvis, I have to go." He nodded. "I know. But before I do," she stepped closer and held his hand. "Promise me something. Anything, honey. Don't let this world kill you." Elvis froze. It wasn't an exaggeration. It wasn't poetic. It was a plea, and he felt it hit the deepest part of him. He squeezed her hand gently. "I promise to try." She smiled through watery eyes. Then she turned and walked toward the door. Elvis watched her go, each step echoing like a chapter closing. When she reached the hallway, she looked back one last time, her face full of gratitude, respect, and something he hadn't felt directed at him in years. Hope. Then she disappeared into the corridor. The door clicked shut. Elvis stood there alone, the letter pressed firmly against his heart. And in that stillness, he understood something. This night, this girl, this letter had changed him. Not the legend, not the performer, not the king, but the man who had nearly forgotten he existed behind the spotlight. And for the first time in a long, long while, Elvis Presley felt a quiet, fragile reason to keep going.